Into the order, the agenda of Vermont Council and Committee meeting, 15th of October, 2024, at the Vermont Municipal Building. I'll ask for a recording. I'll call for a mover for approval of the agenda. Deputy Mayor Mawhinney, seconder, Councillor Daw. Questions? All in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. We'll move right down to the presentation as the 2025 budget public consultation, and I'll turn that over to our CEO, Mr. John Jackson, and we'll go from there.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. I want to first, while we get set up, welcome everybody tonight. So obviously we're here for public consultation. So we'll go through a series of slides on what we know right now, obviously through the budget process. Obviously, if there's anything there that you want to speak to or have questions, we'll definitely have some time at the end. I just would appreciate at least to try to get through this part, and hopefully maybe some of those answers by virtue will get covered. And we'll certainly have time at the end for everybody. So here we are, 15th of October, and we're just, staff's been working away for a while since August on getting some numbers together. For those who've been here before, this is kind of the first public dialogue in person. Although some may have noticed, we did add a survey to our process for this year, which was out through the month of September. We collected some data there, and we're going to see some of that tonight. So the objective tonight is really just to look back at 2024, what we've done so far, and there's a few months left this year. And then plan and give you some insight in what we're planning to do in 2025. And then we can have a conversation on that in a collaborative and constructive way. So again, the timeline, we did have our budget survey that closed the end of September. Thanks for everybody here who filled it out. We got some good data from that we'll see in a minute. Tonight, obviously, is our public consultations, and from this, we'll take this information, formulate it for council as they meet with department heads and staff next week to really go through some fine numbers. And then there'll be another presentation back to council as well as open to the public on the 13th of November, which will have more detail on 2025 from that perspective. If you're here tonight looking for detail on what we're doing in 25, there's not a great amount of detail. We'll give you the big picture stuff, but if somebody wants to know what streets are being paved or what's getting fixed, tonight is not the night for that. We'll let you know, broadly speaking, how much we're prepared to invest and why, but we won't have any of those specifics tonight. So outline, we'll talk a bit about the service areas. So this is where your tax dollars go. We know that's important to people. They often wonder. So we'll get that. We'll talk a bit about some of the survey and what we found from that. We'll do a breakdown on our revenues and where that goes. And in 2025 changes, we'll talk a bit about assessed values, which I know everybody loves to talk about and debate, potential tax rates, some of our known pressures and planned investments, and then we'll finish off with a bit of idea on strategic long-term planning, and then of course your questions and comments. So, you know, where does the money go? So effectively, all of your tax dollars that you pay go into essentially 5 buckets. So these are our 5 service areas that we have. It's all accounted for within one of those 5. So we've got our environmental health services, our public works, general government, recreation and culture, and public safety. So that's where they all fall. We'll kind of we'll talk about those buckets in more detail here in a minute. But one of the things we want to get to first is some of the survey data that we heard for this year. So we heard last year that people didn't feel as engaged in the budget process. So we listened to that and we thought, well, let's add a public survey component. So we asked a series of questions and gave people the opportunity to answer those and provide comment. So we had about 351 responses, which isn't bad. 90% of the people were residents who've lived here for more than 11 years. So that's nice to know that, the residents who have a feel for town and are grounded here. And 70% of them are between 35 and 64, which makes sense because those tend to be the people who are most actively engaged in, that tax paying, making, working, growing families, those sorts of things. And when we did find in the question of services, the majority of people felt that we should continue to maintain the current service we have in the following departments, which is pretty much all our departments, which is rec and tourism, engineering, public works, fire, planning and compliance, and then general government. The one that they felt needed more resources was in policing. And so, that's natural. We do hear that often. And we can talk a bit about that here as we move forward. So the other piece that we want to let people know is how they were obtaining their information. And this wasn't a one answer fits. It applied to a lot. So percentage wise, they don't add up to 100% obviously, but the majority of people are seeking information through social media. So we recognize that. And so we're attempting to be sure that we're putting more things on our social media sites that have data, including our survey results. Some might have seen a more graphical version of some of this information just as recent as this past weekend. So website's another one, and then of course emails or Voyant, and Voyant's an app that you can put on your phone that gives you alerts on certain things should you want them, all from emergency measures to when ball fields are open or closed to all kinds of things. So if you don't know about it, you can certainly seek some information from staff, and we'll be glad to help you find your way there. So 55% believe they received poor value for their tax dollars. So why was that, right? Because that's a bit over half. So some of the reason obviously is a lack of curbside recycling was a common theme. So we're going to work to try to fix that this next year. More policing, which included visibility, general visibility out there. ATVs was another one, and enforcement in that, and then of course bylaw enforcement was another piece, which isn't necessarily strictly policing, so that's something we think we can do better on, and we'll have a better plan for 25. They wanted more importance in investments in recreational facilities, which is great because we have a plan to build a new one, so that's nice to know that people aren't just wanting to accept the old infrastructure that we have. And then water and sewer bills was another theme, and poor value. And so what that tells us, we still got some education to do on that. We cannot really pay for water and sewer systems through property tax. We have to do that through a fee for service essentially. So We did put some stuff out last year. I think we still have some more work to do in educating people on how that works, and we'll continue to do so. So, we'll talk a bit more about that, here too. So 71% agree the town should invest in a new community recreation wellness center. That's great. That's good news because, we're heading down that road. We'll talk a bit more broadly about that tonight. 86% believe that the enhanced level of service we provide, such as snow gates, and by the way, we're the only community left in Canada who does that. So specialized fire and rescue equipment is another. We have drop offs for trees and grass. They all feel those are nice services to have, which is great because we'll try to maintain those services. So top 5 priorities identified in the survey, there was a list. So public health was one. Obviously, I know that's on the minds of a lot of people, especially those who don't have, primary care doctors, that sort of thing. While it's not the direct responsibility of the town to do that, we do recognize that we can act and play a part in terms of an advocate for those to the province, which we've been doing, and we've also struck a healthcare action committee to help in trying to create incentives for doctors and other healthcare professionals to come to Oromocto. I will say we have been successful. We will have a new doctor coming to town in May as a result, so it's only one. I realize they're not gonna take all 42,000 people out there that are still on the list, but it's one better, so we are trying to do our best there. Affordable housing, we're working with a group, Ignite, so they're through an economic development agency to come up with a strategy, and one of those is affordable housing. So we recognize for people that housing costs are getting more and more unaffordable, and we're gonna try to find ways to develop plans to hopefully keep those prices from getting higher. Infrastructure renewal was a big one, so that's on our list. We plan to invest millions of dollars into, new facilities and replacing old buildings because they're just old and they're costing us more to own and operate and run, just because of that. So we are, gonna, try to make that a point over the next couple of years. Investments in active living, again, we understand that that's important to people who are here in Oromocto. We've got great rivers, we've got great green spaces. We now have active transportation trails, so we need to keep investing in making those better for people because it's a quality of life and it's a nice thing to be able to promote. And so we'll continue to do that. We're in a stage, and some may have participated in a survey for our parks and recreation master plan. And so some of that will also help us outline what the next few years brings in terms of that. And then finally, curbside recycling. So you did hear a lot about that. So the town is going to begin to negotiate with a service provider that hopefully by the end of 2025, we will have curbside pickup for recycling. So it's coming. It's just a matter of trying to get the best deal. So top recurring comments that we heard throughout the survey, obviously wellness and encouraging outdoor activities, a lot of that. So we'll continue to do that. Recycling, do more and get a curbside service. Okay, we're going to negotiate that. More police and related bylaw enforcement. So we are looking into some of the things we can control on the bylaw enforcement side and seeking increases for things there. I will say we did hear a lot about 2 new ice surfaces, which is a nice to have. Not sure it's a reality in terms of cost, but it's certainly nice to have, and it was mentioned several times, and the last one was lower the current tax rate. So, what I will say about the 5 major occurrences is the first 4 comments and the last one don't go together. There's no real way to increase on the first 4 or have the first 4 and drop the tax rate, unfortunately. I understand, I get it too, I'm a taxpayer, I wanna get more for less, and I certainly do appreciate that that's on the minds of people, because life is more expensive. And that's something that we have to bear in mind when we continue to go through this process, for budget, but, just wanted to, I guess, make that point known. So, where do all of your tax dollars go in the form of the town's expenses? So this is how it usually breaks down, and put the pie chart up there. Our total expenditure last year was just a shade over 26 million. You'll see in the public safety bracket, which is really police and fire, it's about 8, almost 9 million. General government, which also includes this 3 smaller pieces. When you add all those up, which are debt service, that's those things we borrow to buy, and our environmental health and capital type investments in new pipes, new buildings. That part of the pie will equal up to around 8 million, then public works at 5.5, and then recreation culture at just over 2.5. That's where it all goes. Every little bit of it. We have to balance budgets. We're not allowed to bring in a deficit, which means we can't predict to spend more than we take in. So we have to try our best to figure out, okay, how much are we going to take in versus how much can we reasonably, I guess, spend or bear to the taxpayer. So again, none of this equates to water and sewer. That's a whole separate budget altogether. This is just where your property taxes go. So here's your big buckets and broken down. So when we go back to that first slide in the 5, so what does general government really mean? Well, what it gets you is your representation, so your mayor and council, the folks in this room, this building, that sort of thing. Debt service, as I talked about, the capital investment, strategic planning, financial planning, economic development, municipal planning on that side. Our building compliance, our bylaw enforcement is also part of that, HR, human resources, financial services, and legislative services. So it's a lot that goes into that number, and that big bucket equates to just a shade over 8 million in 20. Public safety, so that's your police, fire, and then your emergency measurement. So our policing is covered through RCMP. We have a direct contract with RCMP. They're our service provider. I don't get to negotiate a lot with the RCMP when it comes to providing that service. They give me a price and I either take it or I leave it. I don't have this council doesn't have a lot of wiggle room when it comes to policing service. It's either you get it through the RCMP or you have your own police force, which would be way more than $8 million if I had to stand up a police force here for just Oromocto. In fire, that includes a lot of things. It isn't just fires, but it includes, emergency medical, type of things. So first responders, there's a lot of that we do. We cover motor vehicle accidents, so on the highways, that sort of thing. We do water rescues. you'd be shocked at how many people just decide to go swimming at midnight where there's a current, right? You know, somebody needs to be saved. We have the training and the equipment to do that, so that's where part of those dollars go. And then emergency management, so we have an emergency operations centers in this building. We have people who are trained, and we continue to do training and planning. And while it may not sound like a lot, I will tell you that the last thing you want to do is experience something for the first time when it's actually happening. So we try to make sure we invest in our people so that they have training and they get that repetition, so that when you have flood, forest fire, or some type of chemical spill, we don't have a bunch of people running around, running into walls because that's not a right time for that. So we do put a fair amount of investment into those buckets of public safety, and it's certainly a big bucket at just shy of $9 million for 2024. So environmental health services is a smaller bucket, but that's your garbage and waste removal. So we now have a combined contract with Ward 4, which is our Lincoln area, which we took in January of 2023. So that's good, we're under one. But what people may not know is that contract picks your garbage up and that's it. Then you have tipping fees, so when the truck goes to the dump and it dumps the garbage, we pay again. So that's not covered under that garbage contract. And both those things are the bulk of that $1.2 million a year. It takes a lot to do that. And then of course our recycling programs, which currently right now we have bin service for those who are familiar in town. Ward 4 in Lincoln does currently have curbside because we have 2 contracts going right now, but hopefully by the end of this year, everybody will have curbside. So our public works bucket, well, this is the one most people get because it's the stuff you see and feel, right? So street sidewalks, maintaining them, including your snow removal, water and sanitary systems. Of course, we've got a lot of work here to do in investment in some of those because the town was all built in 3 years between 53 and 56, and a lot of it hasn't been replaced since. So it's like light bulbs in your house. If you put a pack of 10 in and one goes out, you better buy a pack of 10 because chances are they're all going to go out sooner than later. So we do have a little bit of work left to do there. Our stormwater management's another one. And of course, everybody knows with climate change, we are starting to see the effects of what was put in the ground 50 years ago just isn't big enough for some of the events we're seeing now. So as we replace it, we're actually not only replacing it, but replacing it bigger. So again, it sometimes comes at a cost. For those who are in the Lincoln area, the public works portion for roads goes directly through to the province, and that's a part that you see in the middle bracket. So about almost 1.2 million of the money goes directly to DTI to service their streets, their culverts, their ditches. And town doesn't actually get that portion. It gets it for a half a second as it passes its way through. And of course, we do have engineering services here, so which we look at projects from new road construction to all our capital type, whether it's water, sewer, that sort of thing. So the total bucket is about 6.7 million, but what stays in town is just about 5.5. So recreation and culture, that bucket, Again, most people familiar with, the programs that rec and culture have, but, some of the big things we do, so we have rec facilities. We have a library, we have an arts and culture center. We have different community sports programming, recreation programs, so you can see all of that. We're planning to do a lot of replacement in some of those older facilities and wrap them all into a new one. We hope to have more information on that in the upcoming months and into 2025, so people can grasp an idea of what that looks conceptually and get excited about it. The other pieces of arts and playgrounds, tourism is a big factor, and then the pride in the grounds. So we do our maintenance like mowing, flowers, garbage pickup in all the parks and trails. People have to do that work, and they won't do it for me on a volunteer basis, so that all plays a part into the $2.5 million budget for this bucket, if you will. So where does the revenue break down? So this is how it breaks down in terms of where does it all come from? Well, there's two brackets. You'll see tax and PILT. So tax is the property tax that you pay. PILT, for those who may not be familiar, that's payment of tax, and that's effectively the base. So that's the federal property and what they pay into what our revenue. So those two buckets alone account for about 85% of the revenue on an annual basis. So the rest of it comes from what we call non-tax revenue. So we do service the Oromocto First Nation. We have a contract with them. We do different fire services out and about. So we have a regional fire service that looks after some of the local service districts and areas, and then now some of the newer communities just around our borders. And in turn, we do take back some a revenue from that, which is good, but permits, so building something, you pay a building permit, or you're charged a fee for recreation type thing, and that all plays part of that pot. And it's usually somewhere in the vicinity of about $3.5 million a year. And the funding, community funding equalization, that's being lowered. That used to come through the province. It used to give us a certain amount of money. We're now seeing that being reduced to 0 in 2027. So that does have an effect on us because we currently have no way to replace that funding that they used to give us. We started out at just over $500,000, and by 2027 it will be 0. So our going backs right now, as far as us being charged by the Regional Service Commission, they use the 2021 census for population, which is 11,910. Now, every day this number changes in reality. And depending on what website you want to try to Google, you'll find anything from 12,000 to change to 11,600, but based on what we get charged through the province, it's 11,910 until the next census comes out sometime in 2026. The tax base for value in 2024 in Lincoln was 289 million, and Oromocto 1.66 billion, which also includes the base. So assessed values for 2025 tax base, we estimate might be somewhere just slightly over 2 billion, but that's an estimate based on our financial plan that is out and available for both. So we've applied a 6% assessment base increase. We're not sure yet. We don't know. We won't know until we get the actual warrant from the province, which they're holding on to right now because, as most people know, next Monday there's an election. So Hopefully sometime after next Monday, they might give us some numbers on our tax more. The one thing I'll mention in terms of that 10% spike cap, so we have about 37% of properties or more that are under that protection. So what that means to the individual is that if your assessment went up because people around you bought houses for crazy prices, you're only gonna pay a max of 10% every year until you're caught back up. So that's good for the individual, but it doesn't always help the municipality in terms of the tax base growth, if you will. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I know myself as an individual, I like it because it kind of takes the ebbs and flows from getting shocked at having a 22% assessment increase one year is probably not something anybody wants to have or see. So that makes sense, but from a town perspective, we don't benefit from that 22%. We'll only benefit from the 10. So potential mill rates in 25. So what is a mill rate? Just for people, essentially it's equates to $1 for every 1,000 that a property is assessed at. So it's 1/1000th of a dollar. So 0.1% that's how you roughly calculate property taxes. We do have our 5-year financial plan available on our website. So based on that plan, it's been there for about 16 months now, or we're in second year of that 5-year plan. The projection is potentially a 1.5 cent increase in Oromocto and a 4 cent in Lincoln. Now, what I will say is if our warrant comes back and we can do better than our 6%, we can give that money back in terms of lessening those potential mill rate increases. I don't know because I don't have the numbers. Normally, we get those numbers actually today, but we were told today we wouldn't get those numbers. So until whatever happens next Monday. So what does that really mean? If we generate 1 cent mill rate increase, if we add 1 cent to our revenue would equate to 155,000 in Oromocto and about 31,000 for every cent raised in Lincoln. As far as assessment goes, we don't control that. We understand because we're as frustrated as anybody else when it comes to how those get done, why they're done, why they're raising, why they're not raising. All I can suggest is the Service New Brunswick is doing a pretty good job of trying to give some more information to folks about how that works on their end. And so if you go to my nvpropertyassessment.ca, you can find some more information on assessments and how that works. And hopefully help debunk some of the assessments and how people see that. But so this is where the rubber hits the road, right? We always want to be transparent with folks and what would that impact be to the average home? So what I can tell you is based on 2024 assessment values, and that's data that comes directly from Service New Brunswick. I am not making this stuff up. The average home assessment in Oromocto was 301.1 thousand. And in Lincoln, it was just slightly lower at 285,900. So break it down, 1 cent increase, obviously, as we talked about the mill rate, how that math works, pretty straightforward. If it was only about a tax rate and not assessment, a 1 cent increase is $30 in Oromocto and 28 and change in Lincoln. That wouldn't be too bad, right? But we all know that it's not just about that, it's the assessment portion as well. Wanted to give you that based on our increase from last year, which was 6.8%. That's was how much the average assessment went up in Oromocto. So using that and our projected mill rate increases of 1.5 and 4, what would that mean to folks in Oromocto total? If you're average at 301, then your total increase to your tax bill would be $339. And in Lincoln, if you're at around the average of 286,000, your total tax bill increase would be about 305. So yes, an increase, not gonna sit here and pretend it's not right at the moment. Hopefully people can go, well, you know, it's not crazy, but I realize this is an average. Some people are gonna be under it, which is better, and some people are gonna be at 10%, which is worse. That's around what, again, if once our staff gets the new warrant and can give anything back on those suggested mill rate increases as per our 5-year financial plan, we will absolutely look at it, but we need to balance our budget. And we need at least 6% of that growth in order to do so and keep some of the services that you want us to keep. And recap some of the services that are old and need replacing. So our outlook, well, again, we just explained, hopefully we're looking at a property tax revenue increase based on our mill rate increases projected for now, slightly, so that's 6% growth. Our pill, we did the same thing, it tacked 6% growth on there. Our equalization, you'll notice from the slide previous, is going down another 20%. So the province of New Brunswick is taking that money and reducing it. So again, that 20% equates to around 121,000, which if I could get that money back, it helps reduce the burden on you folks, the taxpayer, because I can offset that mill rate that's get back. But for now, that's what we're facing. Our contribution for fire services, this is what we get back out of the groups around that pay us, is 1.1 million. So that's good. It offsets that 8.9 million. It just helps reduce some of that overall operating. And so that's not a bad thing. The remaining revenues, that's a target. We hope to hit 2.7 million, if we will. But again, I don't have that crystal ball, but based on some past years and trying to do some number crunching, I think that's an attainable number. All to say that would then pull in a revenue of about 28.1 million versus the 26.2 that we had for 2020. So again, where are the pressures? Well, on the water sewer side, we do have another increase coming from the Department of National Defense. So again, people may not realize this, but we purchase our water from the base. We're a client, and their rates, they were realized a few years back, they needed to catch up because they were lagging behind on the real numbers versus operational costs. So again, you have another 15% increase. That increase alone on sale of water equates to just over $500,000 that we have to pass along to those folks who use the water. If I didn't have to, I wouldn't, but we don't have a choice in terms of, because we can't make the water ourselves, and so we're faced with that for now. We have pressures on our rates have been relatively low historically, and now we're forced to have to push them up quicker than we would like. it is a shock that people recognize that, but otherwise, I don't know how to pay that $500,000 more they want, in terms of their rate increases, so. And we have negotiated with them to try to ease that burden. But initially, they discovered that their water rate increases had to be increased by 185%. So getting them down to 15% per annum was pretty good. They recognized they should have probably started raising it about 25 years ago, more incrementally, and then that would be shocking people into the rates they're seeing today. Our paving costs are gonna increase by about 20% yet again. If anyone's had their driveway paved in the last few years, it just keeps getting more and more expensive. That's a lot of things in the material and labor side. You know, again, we're working on our community wellness recreation center project, and the costs to plan that are in the 25 budget. Our infrastructure renewal costs are something we need to catch up on, so we're gonna start to see that in 2025. If we were to replace all the old pipe that's put in the ground that's still left in 1956, it would cost us about $200 million in 2024. So obviously we can't do that, but we do need to get a jump started on it, because most of that pipe has been in the ground for 70+ years, and it's at the end or near the end of its serviceable life. So better to replace it before it breaks than it is when it breaks, because when it breaks, it's about 3 times more expensive. So that's something we're endeavoring to do over the next few years to catch up on some of that. Our Capital Regional Service Commission costs, so this is another layer, I guess. So we have a region that we partner with 14 other communities that we all pay a pot into, and the Regional Service Commission is supposed to guide those 14 communities. And so our portion of that payment is annually just over $200,000, which 2 years ago we did not have to pay. But with new local governance reform, that's, I guess, the cost now that Oromocto has to pay, combined with our reduction again, equalization of $121,000. You put those two together, there's $325,000 that 2 years ago used to stay in town and now leaves. Yet I've got to come up with a way to replace that money for those services that you want within the town. So materials, labor, electricity costs are still very high. I don't have to tell anybody here that. But one fun fact is that the town here spends about $1 million in electricity costs every year. So our NU Power bills equate to $1 million. And our largest power bill at just over $400,000 a year is street lights. So people love their street lights, but they come at a cost. So that being said, when we build new streets and street lights go out, we will replace them and put new ones up. But it's a fun fact that when you're driving down the street at night and no one's ever considered, that street light's on, I wonder how much the electricity for that costs. It's quite a bit when you add them all up. And of course, we all know when the power keeps jacking the rates, right? And we see that too. We're not abstaining from those rate increases either. So in local governance reform, some of the procedural costs and gaps that we have, again, equate to about $110,000 over the next 2 years, just to expend out on that extra layer of government, if you will, which is this regional service model. And under that, with the provincial government, when they form these new local governments around, we were supposed to be in now this year and creating fiscal reform, which was how do we pay for this? Well, it didn't happen, and you know how to pay for it, so how do we pay for it right now? We have to put that back onto the property owners in the form of the property tax, because 85% of our revenue comes from property tax to pay for these services. But we are hopeful that in the next few years, when we get another government in, whether that be it the current government in some different form or a new one, that we get back on this fiscal reform to see how we can create other channels of revenue to pay for this, other than putting it on the backs of the individual property tax owners. So things like, oh, I don't know, give me a cut of HST, that, or some kind of other way that isn't burdening the individual homeowner to have to come up with paying for this new reform procedural costs. So again, considerations high level on what we're looking at. Water, we're into continuing that revised billing approach. So for those, they've noticed they've gotten a fixed rate and then their consumption rate, the fixed rate's been going up fast. Yes, we realize that, trying to catch up to the curve. The proposal will see a slight more increase again in the fixed rate, most likely, but drop the consumption rate to hopefully lessen the overall increase that needs to be had in our water bills. The projected rates are in our 5-year financial plan. I believe right now we're suggesting a $25 fixed rate increase by 20 cents per cubic meter of water decrease to try to help offset a little bit of the edge. That's because we've got to catch up on some of our old pipes and have to do it in the form of those water bills that people do not through tax rate increases. So we are on the verge of designing for a new sewage treatment lagoon in Oromocto West, because we have a small one that's long since outgrown its capacity, and so we still are able to service it, but we need to put a big one in for future growth and help take the edge off the old one who's just chugging away as hard as it can. We are looking at transitioning ownership of water, wastewater treatment plants from D&D. Why? Because I don't want to continue burdening people with 15% increases on water rates. I think our staff can do a better job at keeping those within reason if we can operate it ourselves, but that's a long term within, 3 to 5 year negotiating process with the federal government on how that might look. But we're in the process to go down that road to help take the edge off for our ratepayers. Again, the big new community wellness recreation center. So we did get a commitment of $50 million for this, and in terms of the design, planning, and construction. And so in that, we built in small increases to accommodate that future debt as we get there. Because there's only 2 ways to do it: is build in small increases, hopefully to take a little edge off, or the year that it opens the doors, you jack the rate increase up, and of course that's again shocks people. So I've always been more of a mindset if we can increase it just a little bit, knowing what it's for. It's better than getting a big whack in the head 3 years from now when you have to pay the bank back for the money before. Planning for future, so there's lots of stuff going on in asset management strategies, studies, and designs for major capital projects like lagoon systems, like water and sewer systems, and so on and so forth. And of course, again, as I just discussed, those costs of local governance reform that are out there, and real, but at the same time, a lot of folks may not be aware, of those. So high level, what are we looking at for 2025 in our capital budget? So we're looking at an investment of about 1.6 million in paving and roads to keep up with that. We're looking at an investment of just 856,000 on equipment and fleet every year. Things break, or have to be replaced, on that side. Building maintenance here's getting close to $500,000, and this is because a lot of our buildings are old and they need a significant amount more at work, to keep them up and going. And so hopefully, once a new one's built, that type of budgeting can then turn around and maybe go back down. Parks and rec facilities for 2025, just about 94,000, and we'll keep doing that. Water and sewer, so we're planning, this is the first year of investing 5 million into that to really give a jump start on some water sewer projects that need to be replaced. And in a rec and cultural facility, although we say 50 million, the town portion that we would invest your money into is only about 20 million of that, because the rest of it will raise through federal or provincial funding programs. So when you hear the overall number, it's usually just the total of the project, not how much we're asking you folks to bear on that behalf. And so the lagoon, the wastewater, the treatment plant, again, it's about a $25 million project, but for us in town, it's about 8.5 million, for our folks. So that's high level where we wanted to try to invest in capital for next year. Of course, in November, we'll have a more detailed presentation of where all those things are and what they are. But for tonight, that's kind of high level where we're trying to head for 2025. Again, on the long-term planning side, just so we can give transparency and direction to you folks, we started this in 2023. Most of the departments have all developed a new master plan, so it gives them a bit of a guide on where they need to go over the next 5 years, in growth and in investments, and whether it's equipment, personnel, that sort of thing. And then we've also still working on our asset management plan. So we've got GIS systems for people, computer minded, from GPS to, LiDAR to all kinds of crazy technological things. Give us lots more information. Condition assessments, water, sewer modeling, storm modeling. This all helps us know where to go first instead of guessing. So we want to try to make sure we replace the pipes and the stuff that's in the most jeopardy of breaking first versus somewhere else. And guessing at it, this all helps us do that. Our long-term financial plan is annually updated, so that's that 5-year plan. It is on our website. We always bring it back to council in September to get a green light on every year, adding a new year and updating. Are we on track? What do we need to do? And we'll continue to do that. Our corporate plan, we'll review that either in 25 or 26. And obviously continuous improvement and implementation just is ongoing with staff as well. And just establishing partnerships to secure funding for capital projects. So that's where I say when we go back to, we only have to pay, let's say, a portion of some of those bigger ones. This is where we get the rest of the money from. In that regard. And then of course our economic development plan, which is ongoing. And actually, as a matter of fact, there should probably be a community survey for that coming out in the next month, as well as a public engagement session through the chamber on that as well for anybody here who might want to keep their ear to the ground and interested in going to one of those. So reducing financial risks, again, planning ahead, want to think long-term, we're using data, we're not guessing at this. That's why we're comfortable in coming out and telling you what I've told you so far tonight. Asset management, we're using that, again, we're trying to find the stuff that needs to be fixed first and fix it first. That's how we develop our priorities for that type of reinvestment. In the long run, not just next year, you know, you have your must do, should do's, nice to do's, and we're still in the either must do's or should do's. We're not even close to the nice to do's right now when it comes to reinvestment in some of our infrastructure. So we're gonna continue to look for efficiencies through technology. We have new systems for finance, for timekeeping, for people out reading water meters so they don't have to write it down on a piece of paper. They have guns now, so all those things help save time. We're always out for the lookout for federal and provincial funding program, because the more we can get from those two arms, the less we have to burden you folks. We'll refine our tendering and project management processes to keep trying to sharpen the pencil on prices and efficiencies and that sort of thing, because it is, since COVID, I mean, tendering prices have gone through the roof and it's tough, but you try to sharpen your pencil where you can through some of that. We'll continue to address operational budget deficiencies through water and sewer. And that's where we developed that 5-year plan to help do that and take some of that guessing out. And then of course, just understanding the challenge we have with sustaining the infrastructure renewal, because it's a big challenge. You need to get through it. You can't ignore it. But I can certainly appreciate that it comes at a cost. That's the one thing we're trying to find, that delicate balance as well for everyone. And we'll just commit to doing the best to make every dollar count. So really, that's the end of tonight's session for my purposes. And of course, we want to just leave you with any comments and questions you have in terms of concerns with what you see in 2024, and then again, anything that you missed or have to consider that you would like council and or staff to do for 2025. So with that, you know, your worship, I'll end my soapbox spiel here tonight, and then allow the public to, if they have questions or comments.
Okay. So does anyone have any comments or questions? The floor is open. Yes.
Here we have the Minor Hockey Association, and as an association, we're kind of wondering why the one ice surface versus the two, like the town has showed a lot of interest in having two. Financially, you say it's a nice to do, not a need to do. It's really looks like we need to do to maintain the growth in the sports, and we're just wondering why, if building this fancy facility, why we're not doing two ice surfaces.
So
We're using ice in outlying communities and paying to go there, and if it weren't for Soldiers Arena, we wouldn't be able to maintain the Minor Hockey Association at all.
yeah, I guess I can speak a bit to it from a high level perspective, in the sense that the one thing I would say is I definitely want folks to come back when we have a concept and have a broader discussion on just those things. I mean, what I would say is we are developing a template whereby we are going to consider having the ability to add a second ice surface on. What I would say right now is that we do have plenty of data that we've collected through consultants over the years to suggest that two ice surfaces is just something that we can't do yet. And I say yet, because yes, there's always, you don't build a building like this for today, you build it for tomorrow. But that being said, for now, the commitment is to make sure that we have the ability to add on. But there'll be a much broader discussion here, probably in a couple months' time, with some conceptual drawings for the public to see. And then I would invite you to come and, or anyone to that, so we can have a broader discussion on that.
Anyone else have a comment or a question?
I would do. The new wastewater facility, I know it's been long for a while. Will it be going in the same spot?
So what I can tell you there, for now, I will say we don't think so, although we're still, the next step is to get a design done to accommodate where we think it might best be suited. But there's an issue with floodplain and where the current facility is, and proximity to homes. So we're trying to consider a location that won't be as close to homes and out of the floodplain, so to speak. And certainly when we're nearing having more detail, we'll absolutely be able to share that with the public when that time comes.
But that is our objective. We'd like to get it out of there. It's too small and it's not efficient. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
We live down on Burnett, so.
well, we'll get to smell once in a while.
So we walk every day, and we always walk.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just wondering. And also, there was talk about by the tourist center, there is a lift gate there. Whenever we walk by there.
Right.
And I think you guys are working very good.
Yeah, we have been, and we've tried a few different things to mitigate some of those smells, if you will. But it's a fair comments, and we keep trying to figure out what we can do better. Sometimes we just fight against Mother Nature and barometric pressures, but we'll keep working on that, because it is close now to, you know, where a lot of people like to go. When it was first put in, it was in the middle of nowhere, so we're definitely aware of it and keep trying to make that better.
It's a lot better than it used to be, because the public works have raised that height, so you don't get as strong an odor. I notice when I walk in there, every now and again, I'll stop and I'll get a whiff and I'll think, darn, it's back again, but it's not. It's just, like you said, the barometric pressure, that big fancy word. But it used to be a lot worse, so they have tried, they elevated that pipe when the walking trail was put in through there.
Yeah. Also, I noticed over the past. Corner of Blackwatch and Wasses. That where the old tourist center used to be. That's getting surveyed like every month. I was just wondering if there was plans for that area or something, or is that just?
So, no, there aren't. I know what you're speaking to, so. For those who are not into surveying, there's a couple of different survey benchmarks that when surveyors are in the area, like when we're talking within a kilometer or two, they use those benchmarks to get their levels. So it always seems like somebody's surveying right there, but it's not. But I know what you mean. So no, we don't have any ongoing, deals to necessarily do anything with that property yet, although, you know, it's something definitely that we're always, up to entertaining proposals, but no, there's nothing coming that we're aware of in the near future anyway.
Are there any new, developments in the near future? Any like detail or anything like that? Besides the, I see there's a brewing place down that new area.
I mean, if you wanna find out what we can tell you, certainly please call my planning office and they can fill you in on what they can tell you in terms of what we have approvals for, that kind of thing, because we're excited to let people know once we know. Of course, as many know that sometimes we're in processes of negotiation where we can't necessarily say anything until I know we've got a signed agreement, but certainly anything that we have approved, you can absolutely find out through our planning office.
Anyone else? Okay, I want to thank you all for coming. We'll now move on. You're welcome to stay. We'll move on out to the monthly staff report. We'll start with the Department of Finance. Any questions or comments, Councilor? None? Okay. We move up. On to the next department. Human Resources. Any questions or comments on Human Resources? None? Okay. Move on to the Clerk's Office. Any questions or comments? Move on to staff report to the CEO of the Planning and Compliance Department. Any questions or comments? So Dallas, the Lincoln property, the owner's gonna knock that down himself.
It's weeds down now.
Oh, is it really?
It's down. Whenever we had the new bylaw, that's our premises bylaw, we had a lot more teeth. in the area. So we re-engaged with them and we finally got a hold of someone. They understood it was in their interest to knock it down themselves and have us go and do it. And once they came in and got their permit and that was on track, we took our hands off and let them see to it that it came down. And so that's just,
It must have just come down and did
yeah,
it.
it just came down last night. Yeah.
Wow, it was by 7:50. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. I know there really isn't a great solution to this, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. I think that there have been streetlights, especially since you were talking about streetlights earlier and how people like their streetlights, that have been out around town that are under the purview of NB Power. That it seems as though that we have been waiting an extremely long time to get service, and I certainly hope that we continue to lobby for increased service and better service for what we pay for. I know that there have been lights for which I have reported that it has been over a year that we're still waiting for someone to come and do the underground, whatever that they have to do. So I don't know if there's alternative ways around that, or if there's simply for our CAO or our mayor to express our discontent with the amount of time that we're waiting for service. Because at the end of the day, it is our residents who are going without service, of living in an area in which there are lights around their homes, but they're living in darkness. And I'm particularly talking about areas in which are high traveled areas for walking, just even here along Black Watch. And it's completely black on a whole stretch. So I just wanted to bring that up, because I do think it's an issue for which we do know that there's wait times, but I don't think that we should be complacent in, not to say that people are being complacent, but just to bring it up yet again, that we are discontent with the wait times that we are having to wait. Thank you.
You must have a list of, you already did anyway, so.
Yes, we do.
If I can get that list, then Bob Scott's still in every power, he's at the top, and I think he's retired, but he's still there. I could give him a call directly to him. If I can remember his number he gave me, I got it written down, but
He is still around, your worship.
he is still around? Oh, good. I'll get a list and I'll give him a call, see what I can do. Cause he's done the town some favors before. Okay, anything else with the planning and compliance? We'll move on now to the Department of Engineering and Public Works. Any questions or comments? Mr. Dahl?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, the third bullet, repairs and maintenance to the former Hubbard School. Can somebody in my.
Yeah, I can, your worship. So generally that is just to repair where folks keep breaking into the school, for nefarious related activities. So whenever that happens, we gotta repair, board it back up. So that's what that is. It's been a lot, in the last little while. We actually, had RCMP increase, some patrols in that area, and here just about a week and a half ago, they were able to catch and arrest 2 people. So we're hoping that took a bit of the edge off, but certainly every time somebody tears a piece of plywood off or breaks it, we need to go repair it, so people don't have access to entry and by virtue hurt themselves.
And third bullet from the bottom, partially replace the broken sanitary main on Wasses Road.
Mhm.
You can partially replace those things.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the main on Wasses Road is
Quite large.
several kilometers long, so we only replaced about I think it was about an 80-meter section of that.
So it's just a certain section on the street.
Correct, yeah. Yeah,
So I have a couple more.
Okay, good.
Benmore Street, cul-de-sac. Where is it?
Benmore Street.
It was, let me find it. I just.
Down here as well, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots from.
Oh, okay, that's, so they're doing a design review, if you can recall, we did a land sale just at the end of Fenimore Street and Carpenter just off. And so the new landowner is doing design for a little cul-de-sac that'll extend off of Fenimore Street, back towards, Holden Pond, so.
Oh, okay. So it's not really at the end of Benmore.
No,
It's
well,
okay.
it's off the end of, yeah.
Well, the open.
And my last point, under ongoing projects, we seem to have on the report all the time, the Oromocto West rear lot drainage issues. They being issues ongoing, is it something that's forever going to be ongoing, it can't be fixed?
Oh, well, there are various issues that come up all the time as a result of, some of how development occurred way back when and some of the things that have happened since that time. Which some of it's just educating the individual landowners that if there's a small swale or ditch, don't fill it in because it's gonna have an effect, upstream or downstream, so to speak. Some of it is that, in the past, people who have been here long enough remember a day when a works crew would come out and actually put a catch basin in their backyard, and we don't do that anymore. And so those are things that sometimes, if they remember, well, you put that one in 25 years ago, aren't you gonna fix it? So those are some of the issues that sometimes keep popping up that our staff have to contend with on a case by case basis, so.
Okay, so I was wondering if it was because of the way the lots were, And that's the problem with the drainage, why we aren't fixing it, it doesn't occur, but it's not, it's other little things.
Yeah, most of them are other little circumstantial things that happen over time and in that, we also know through some of our new subdivision guidelines and specifications that when we have somebody come in and develop new ones, we won't allow certain things to occur because we know better that in 20 or 30 years' time, what will happen if we don't address it when it's built. So
Okay, thank you.
The security cameras at Anniversary Park, they said they just installed them again. They installed 2 of them on the washroom? Is there 2 on the washroom?
There is, one directed towards the conversation, one towards parking lot, and one over the basketball court.
Well, the one heading to the basketball court's still there, but the other one's gone. I was there this morning. And there's a screen on it, which is nice, but the screen and the whole camera's gone, right? So I was wondering if they repaired them, they're gone. And what they have to do, like I had to tell them last year, ask them last year, is move the garbage can. As they stand on the garbage can, go on the roof, and they go, they wreck it. So they have to move it onto the sidewalk, especially in the wintertime, because people don't walk their dog and dump their poop in because it's all snow. So they do it on the sidewalk and they put it there 40 feet away or 20 feet away from the washrooms. They can't get on that, they get on the roof and break it, because they were there over the weekend. They were drinking, Smirnoff vodka, they smashed a bottle, and they were drinking some other beer and broken things there. I cleaned it all up this morning myself. Didn't want Stella to walk it. So,
No, it might be the old one you see, your worship, because I can see the cameras right now on my phone, so it might be, they might knock down the old brackets perhaps.
well, okay, so on the washroom, there was one on each end, right?
No, just one.
Oh, you only have one on the
Oh,
washroom?
it's not even on the washroom anymore, your worship. We have it hidden over on one of the gazebos, and it's pointing directed towards the gazebo now. So it's probably the old folks that you're seeing.
Because there's one on the washroom.
Yeah, that's the old break. And that.
That was non-functional, that's not working, you're alive.
Yes.
So the old camera's still there.
The old bracket would be your worship, yes.
Yeah, the old bracket on one end, it's just the old bracket, but the one on the front end.
There's no washroom attached to that conversation anymore. There's one on one end pointing towards the.
Yes. Yeah, so there's only one on the washroom.
That's
Okay.
correct, towards the wall.
Okay, the back one's gone, then that's because.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, that solves that problem.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they still will get up on there and,
Yeah, I can make a request to have the garbage can moved.
perfect. Okay, solve that. Anyone else have any questions for Engineer of Public Works? All right, we'll move on to Ormoc Fire Department. Comments or questions? No, we had a good night Thursday night. Good crowd and lots of fun, and the kids had fun and parents had fun and prizes, and so that was a good night. Lots of comments, that was good. All right. And we'll move down to recreation and tourism. Questions or comments? Councilor Della?
Thank you, Worship. I noticed there was something pertaining to the future of the Arts and Learning Center in the report, and I thought we already dealt with that in September's minutes. That the mayor and CEO is going to divest of the building and the land. So is there some further discussion?
No, Councilor, this is because this is my September report, and so I just recap what I did in September.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so it's not a future consideration, it's what.
I apologize.
Okay.
And just one other little thing that's been a burr in my bonnet for quite a number of years. I unfortunately was unable to make my commitment to the fire hall. I apologize, I had to. But while we were down there touring around, I was in many little communities that had banners up. Every time I see those banners, I just cringe. So I took a picture of one. Anybody who knows the Cape Breton area knows Reserve Mines is not very big. It's between Glace Bay and Nova Scotia. Port Morion, Dauphin, they're not very big. And they have banners out proudly displaying their little communities. And I still don't understand why we can't have something in the town of Armagh. When we drove home and we came in through Gateway, I thought, perfect place to put them. We're trying to encourage people to come off the road, spend their money in Armagh, and it's our build up of our tourist area, and we don't have a thing. We have a lovely sign, yes, but we don't have any banners up. We don't have anything along the Wass's Road area to go downtown. And I know everybody is concerned whether downtown's actually downtown now, but it's still where the shopping happens, where a lot of people in that area shop. And other than Pioneer Days, which is wonderful to have the banners up, but they come down. And I'd like to see us take more pride in our town and put some kind of banners up to, as I saw in the report, pride in our community. Right there in the words out of the report. I'd like us to take into consideration that we do that.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I would concur with that comment. I actually typed that as one of the comments, whenever, the CEO was doing his report about this whole idea of pride in community. I think, Councillor Dawes is absolutely right. I also think that we could capitalize on, themed banners around Canada Day, around Christmas, around whatever. I think it's an extremely small financial investment, but it shows pride in community and coalescing people around community around those times of the year.
I think, your worship, we can take that one away for staff to and look at trying to develop some kind of a project plan around that and see what it would entail for council.
Especially where we're already looking at doing some changes with the signage and whether you're going to be Ormacto's model town or whether it's going to be Ormacto or whatever it's going to be. So while we're doing it, we could easily incorporate that. Thank you.
I think at one time we did too, I mean, I know we do the Remembrance Day, which is not really a fair estimate of cost because the Remembrance Day banners are, I mean, not only they're not done by us, but I thought we had one time price point some banners. Did we, or did we always just talk there'd be some? Did we not open up to see what, because I know the Remembrance Day banners were a little more costly because they were more detailed. The pictures of people and I know with the Legion, they look at it and stuff, but did we not kind of look and see just for some generic, did we not look into that? What I'm going on is Deputy Mayor's comment about a very inexpensive way. That would be probably the turning point of what we do is to find out really what that would cost, whether we come up with generic thing with a new logo or anything like that, or change it for Christmas and stuff, but yeah, I just thought that was something that we talked about, but it may have been just the Remembrance Day one, I guess. I love the Remembrance Day, that's probably my favorite, I love that this town does that. I know it's not us, but it's amazing, I just, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Worship, and I'm completely in favor of the CAO's recommendation to refer to department to look into, but I can tell you that with another organization that I'm involved in, we do thematic banners and we use the local business to do
Yeah.
so, and they are not expensive to do.
Okay.
Now, if you're gonna buy 50 of them, of course, it's gonna be a little bit more expensive, but if you're looking to have 5, 10 done, and you're looking to alternate those depending on the season, you're not looking at big dollars, but it does have big impact because people notice those things.
But I think 5 to 10, it would have to be a significant number
Oh, could be.
for us.
Councillor Dawes?
And personally, I'm not looking at seasons. Let's start with at least getting them up.
Mhm.
For sure.
Exactly.
The summer and the fall,
Yeah.
when people are in our town. Not saying they're not in the winter doing the right thing and anything else, but we're gonna start with that at least and then look at something else. And start somewhere.
But the banners aren't, they're reasonably cheap, it's the graphics, and then the manpower. Like, with the Legion, they have a volunteer committee that put them up, and take them down. And now there's I think there's 70 of them now they have.
Yeah, they went through a couple of years where they were skeleton crew, but they built it up here about 2 years ago, and they're better,
It
yeah.
started first year, there was only 12,
Mm.
and it was only 125, because I had 3 of them, my grandpa, my brother, and my dad, so. And there were only, it was $200 each then, so I don't know what it is now,
But am I correct to say that the town paid for the brackets initially? When they first, yeah, the town either paid for the brackets or put them up? The first couple of years.
They put them up
There
because
was
it's
something,
because it was
that
only
there was
12.
an investment that, yeah, there was kind of like a teamwork when they first came out, that they had them done. I thought the town paid for the brackets, put them up.
No, did not, Barbara.
Are you sure?
No, because,
100%.
Brian, Carroll,
Yeah,
he worked for maintenance company.
right, oh, yes, you're right.
And they still haven't till right now.
So I think we just put them up, maybe, we put them up the first couple
Yeah,
of
put
years,
them up.
there was something, I remember, yeah.
Well,
And then it just got big, and then the Legion kind of took it on.
But even if you have a summer one, that's 6 or 7 months out of the year that they stay up.
It's a start.
It's a start.
Yeah, no, we definitely look into that. Council Carr?
Yeah, be the person to speak up for Lincoln and say, I would like to make sure that Lincoln's included in our 200+ year heritage of the communities.
That's right,
To be recognized,
200+
perhaps
years.
not with Ormondo only on the sign,
Yeah,
as our citizens will be.
is it this coming year?
No, but it's, I believe our sign is 1786,
Oh, yeah.
65, I'm sorry.
65,
Yeah, so a significant amount of time, but as a unique.
that even unique to that,
250 is getting closer, actually. so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's kind of cool.
Just be mindful and sensitive.
We haven't been around for almost 50.
No,
Well, together you were,
Close.
together.
Good, Dale. Thank you. Okay. Move on to corporate services. Any questions or comments? Nope. Okay. Then we'll move on to administration. And we'll start with the proposed bylaw 613 and proposed bylaw 505. Dallas, do you have that here?
Yes, your worship.
Thank you.
Evening, everybody. Dylan was here last month to give a presentation to you all on the proposed building bylaw and the proposed subdivision bylaw. They also appeared at PAC and gave a presentation to the PAC members. PAC members all voted unanimously to support council's adoption of the proposed regulations of the proposed bylaws. When Dylan was here, they went over the proposed changes. Really, the major change is just we had to come on, and decide on one unifying, building permit fee schedule structure. And we stuck with the service area, the service index that the town of Ormondo historically had. So there'll be a little bit of changes in the building permit fee that people experience, and there's we changed the number of inspections that we do. We had 3 in the corporate area previously, and 5 in the town, and now we moved down to 4 for most situations. Still be able to cover everything and have flexibility for other situations, just lets everyone know what to expect on level playing field going forward. With that, it's really just, letting you know that the bylaws have been placed on the website, in accordance with the requirements of the legislation, and, they've been, brought forward, in different times, in an open house, and again, they've been online for people to see for a little while, so if there's not any questions, I'll turn it over to council to consider, the third reading of the proposed bylaws.
Any questions or comments, council? Alderman Fuzzy? Okay. Thanks, Dallas. Let's see now, where would you, here we are. Okay, September 19, 2024 draft regular session minutes are for you. Any comments or questions or errors or omissions, please let Jillian know right away. And then we'll go to 5D. The workplace health and safety policy. Good to see you.
Yeah, so your worship, this is just kind of coming back, more as a matter of process than anything, so. We're trying to get back on track with some of these, especially with, safety of workforce, and so one of the things that we kind of felt a little lax on was that this policy is supposed to come back to council annually for either their blessing to continue on, or if we had suggested any changes as we did our review. And so for this year, we don't necessarily suggest any changes. So you're just really looking for a resolution to adopt as written, and then we'll just make it current, because I think the last time it was done was like 2017 or something, so. So really, no changes to the current policy. It's a one pager. So we'd just like to bring the resolution, when regular council comes, and so if there's any questions to that, then we can certainly take them now.
Councilor Dodd?
Thank you. I just have one question. It says workplace health and safety. I know we're going to health and safety. It's just that that's the standard now because that was the standard at the time. So we're going with something current. Is that basically what it is, tidying it up? Okay.
Any questions or comments? So let's, Warren Budget Council? Okay. All right. Then I'll call for a mover for an adjournment. Councilor Kirkbride, Secretary, Councilor Von Richter. Questions? All in favor? Contrary? Motion carried.
Over 11, this house came there.
Your worship.
So that's just.
Allow me to stop the recording here.